The Apple TV HD, originally known as the Apple TV 4, was released in 2015 and was the most advanced Apple TV yet, featuring the Apple A8 from last year's iPhone 6 and 32 gigabytes of storage. It was a significant upgrade from the Apple TV 3 with an Apple A5 and no App Store. But now that it's 10 years old and is still receiving updates from Apple, how does it compare to more modern alternatives like the Apple TV 4K and the Amazon Fire Stick? Keep watching to find out. So for the devices we have today, we are going to be comparing the Apple TV 3, which features the Apple A5 chip with 512 megs of RAM and 8 gigabytes of storage, and the Apple TV HD, which was released in 2015, has the Apple A8, 2 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of storage. Also, the Apple TV 4K, which was released in 2017, but there were multiple generations released. In our case, we are going to be doing a first gen, which features the Apple A10X and has 3 gigs of RAM, but is configurable up to 128 gigabytes of storage. So for our last device, we have the Amazon Fire Stick HD, which was released in 2020. It features an MTech 8695, which is kind of confusing. Has 1 gig of RAM and 8 gigs of storage. Okay, starting off with the boot up test, you can see we have all the devices right here and ready to go. And you can see pretty early on the Apple TV 4K finishes in 8 seconds. Then there is a little bit of a wait between when the rest of them finish. So surprisingly to me, the Fire TV HD finishes next. But I do got to give it credit because it is 5 years newer than the rest of these devices. So it finishes around 36 seconds. Then there's a little more of a wait, and while you think the Apple TV HD looks like it's not booting up right now, it actually is, just kind of in the background. And surprisingly, the Apple TV 3 finishes at 47 seconds, which is honestly very surprising to me because I didn't think it would finish that quick. But then we wait a whole minute basically for still waiting for the Apple TV HD to boot up, and we're still waiting, unfortunately. I don't want to cut anything out because I want you guys to get the raw boot up time. So you can see it finishes at 118. It was honestly closer to 115, but like, I can't believe it took that much longer for the Apple TV HD to boot, but I do got to give it credit because it is a 10-year-old device running a brand new operating system. Now we are going to be launching the settings app just to see which one can launch it first. It seems like the Apple TV 4K did it, which isn't really shocking. Okay, so now we are going to be launching Amazon Prime Video on all of them because that's the only app that they all have in common. So you can see the Apple TV 4K launches it first with the Fire TV HD not long after. But the Apple TV 3 takes a lot longer launching it than I would like, but it does eventually launch it. Okay, so now launching the music app, you can see the Apple TV 4K and Fire TV HD launch it pretty much instantly, with the Apple TV 3 coming in a little bit behind, but surprisingly, the Apple TV HD takes a longer time to load, but it does eventually load. I think it's because on the Apple TV 4K it was suspended, and on the Apple TV HD I didn't have it suspended, so. Okay, so launching Plex here. Unfortunately, the Apple TV 3 does not support it, but you can see the Apple TVs pretty much load up at the same time with the Apple TV HD behind by a little bit. But the Fire TV is really behind at the fact that the Apple TV 4K and HD already have the movie loaded up while the Fire TV HD is still waiting to load the page for it. So now with the Fire TV still sitting here loading, I did hit the resume button, still loading, and then we're in. That took way longer than it should have. Okay, so after those results, we are going to count up the points. So, first of all, I do want to say that the Apple TV 3 and Apple TV 4K are not being scored. They were just being used as benchmarks for my tests. Okay, so starting with the boot up test, the Fire TV won, and it won by about half a minute. So, that's 1 point for the Fire TV. Then we moved on to the settings test, which settings seemed to launch later on the Fire TV than it did on the Apple TV HD. So again, now we're gonna give the Apple TV HD 1 point, so it's 1-1 right now. Next, we did the Prime Video test, and this was pretty much even, but the Apple TV actually got there first by a few seconds. So we're going to give the Fire TV the point here. Next up was the music test. So, unfortunately, the Fire TV doesn't come with a built-in Apple Music app. So I'm not gonna score this one, but if I did score it, or actually I will count it. That's 1 point for the Fire TV, so 2-2 right now. Lastly, we had the Plex test. So this was to see how long it would take each device to load up a movie off of my Plex server. Keep in mind, these were all filmed at separate times. These were not all running off the same, at the same time. These are not trying to load all at the same time. So the Apple TV seemed to win by a mile, considering that it was already playing the movie while the Amazon Fire Stick was still trying to get into Plex. So yeah, I would definitely say get an Apple TV HD because it is sold pretty cheap on eBay. Plus, it is still being updated. But one thing you are definitely gonna want to keep in mind is the fact that the Apple TV HD is 10 years old. So there's really no telling how much longer Apple is going to update it for. But also, if they do stop updating it, apps are still going to work on it for another 5 years. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed my look back at the Apple TV HD and its comparison and how well it holds up. I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys again in the next video. Bye!